Good evening and welcome. My name is Joanna Martinez, and I am third vice president and chair of the Education Committee for NAACP Lancaster. The NAACP's mission is to secure political, educational, social, and economic equality of rights in order to eliminate race-based discrimination and ensure the health and well-being of all persons. Tonight's event was organized by NAACP Lancaster's Political Action and Civic Engagement Committee and is an open forum with the candidates running for the upcoming mayoral elections on Tuesday, November 2nd. Our moderator tonight is Patricia Hobson-Shelton. Ms. Hobson-Shelton is a Chief Diversity Officer and Professor Emerita of Millersville University, as well as CEO of Kid Brother Media and chair of NAACP Lancaster's Criminal Justice Committee. Patricia will engage in discussion with the candidates, after which there will be a question and answer time for you to ask about issues that are important to you. You may post any questions you may have for the panelists in the chat box, and we will try to get to as many of them as we can in the time that's allotted. Patricia, I know that we're going to have some really good discussion here tonight, so I'm going to hand it over to you for introductions.
Thank you. First of all, I consider it an honor to be here tonight, and I'd like to thank the two candidates for coming tonight and participating with us, as well as those who are in the chat room. And they say that debates are the best way to learn about candidates. And so this will be an education opportunity, not only for the voters, but also for the candidates to understand what's important to the voters. And I'd like to thank you very much, Third Vice President Joanne Martinez. Thank you so much for that introduction. Just like Joanne said, is that we're going to have a question and answer period. I'm going to start off by asking both the candidates to give us like a 2 or 3 minute statement. And then after that, we will start asking questions in which you'll have 2 to 3 minutes to answer each question. I will ask probably about 4 to 5 questions, and then we will take questions from the chat room, and Joanna will facilitate that part of the discussion. So, are there any questions? Okay, so why don't we start off with you, Mayor Sorace? Would you give us like your 2 or 3 minute statement?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. It's really my pleasure to be with you tonight. I want to thank all of you for making this happen, specifically Joanna for the introduction, Patricia for facilitating and moderating this discussion tonight, and for behind the scenes Amy for helping us get everything organized, and to the NAACP at large, as well as the Political Action and Engagement Committee. I appreciate this opportunity to be with you tonight. I can't believe it's been 4 years. I keep saying that, but it's just been an incredible 4 years, and especially since COVID and the murder of George Floyd, there's just been a lot of heaviness in our community as we continue to address both issues around COVID as well as racial equity. And I want to begin just also by saying what an honor it's been to serve as mayor of the city of Lancaster these past 4 years. It has been incredibly humbling to work alongside residents and city staff alike to achieve our vision of creating and building a stronger, more equitable city for everyone. And I just wanted to highlight a few of the things that I am most proud of during my time as mayor. The first is to say we've secured $11.1 million to address lead remediation. 100% of this funding is coming to households south of King, and the city is one of 7 recipients in the nation. And as of now, we are hitting it out of the park in terms of the results that we are delivering. We launched programs to prevent evictions, added a housing social worker to address critical needs related to housing, ensured that the residents' voices are heard in a lot of different processes through the Office of Neighborhood Engagement, and made significant changes to police leadership, policy, and practice. And additionally, I just want to add that we've been working on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives within and across the city. And I'm really proud of our executive leadership team, which I believe is the most diverse executive leadership team in the history of the city. And so while we've accomplished a lot, there is so much more to do. And this is why I'm running for a second term to continue the work that we have started, which is, I believe, fundamental to the success of the city and to really creating that stronger, more equitable Lancaster that will serve all of the city residents.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Reverend Willie Shell, would you like to give us a 2 or 3 minute statement, please?
Yes, first of all, let me just say good evening and thank you, Joanne Martinez, and thank you, Sister Patricia Hopkins, for your indulging. I want to just introduce myself. My name is Willie E. Shell Sr. I would like to thank all of the independent, Republicans, and Democratic voters that signed my petition, that stand with me to make this all possible. I also would like to thank the NAACP for hosting this event, and all of you whom are on Facebook and Zoom. As many of you know, I've been a member of Lancaster community for over 40 years. I have tried to do my part as a member of Lancaster community. During the last 40 plus years, I helped organize credit unions. I created jobs opportunities through my business. I have the opportunity for the last 40 years to watch the city go through many changes, some good and some bad. But regardless, I love this city and the people in this city. I believe Lancaster is a great place to live. Unfortunately, there are some parts of the city that are not given the same opportunity for growth as the rest of the city. This has gone on far too long, and I believe it's time to change. It is time to bring all parts of the city together so we can grow together. I ask that you stand with me as I fight for all of Lancaster City, and together we can make history. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Shell. The first question, and I think that Danene has already gone into some of it, but you might want to expand since you do have 2 minutes to do this, is for Mayor Sorace. What are the 2 most important accomplishments of your time in office?
I would say the work that we have done alongside the new leadership at the police department has been very significant. And certainly we started that work in 2018 with the revision of the use of force policy and the implementation of body cameras. And I would say that that work has just successfully continued with the leadership of Chief Bay. We're doing making changes to the way that we do hiring and onboarding for new officers, as well as promotions. And we're also doing a review of our policies, top to bottom, within the police department, which is inclusive of our internal review and affairs processes. So that is one thing that I am particularly proud of, and I'm grateful for the support to continue to carry that work forward. And then the second thing I would say is the creation of the Office of Neighborhood Engagement. I think that, you know, we are all similarly proud of our downtown. We think of downtown as everybody's neighborhood, but we also know that that there are areas in the city that need more and special attention, and they really need to engage our residents in a different way. And that means knocking on doors. It means hosting neighborhood meetings and community, Christmas attics, area churches, and so on, to really hear from residents about what their needs are and how we can best work in partnership with one another to create the kind of community that we all want. And so I would say that the work in the police department and the creation of the Office of Neighborhood Engagement are two things that I'm particularly proud of. And I could go on, but I'll stop with two.
And so the other part of this question is, what are your administration's two most important goals for a second term if you're elected?
I think the most important goals for my second term really have to do with affordable housing and the work that we are embarking on, that we've really begun in earnest with this month's council meetings, and our interim housing strategy is very important and a very clear priority for me in the second term. And I will say that also part of the second term is really addressing the structural deficit and the fiscal sustainability of the city and what it means long-term as a third-class city, which is the size of our city and the ways in which we are governed by the state legislature. That really impedes upon our ability to deliver services in the city of Lancaster because of the over-reliance of property taxes in funding municipal services. And that is just a really long road that we need to walk along. And we are the highest tax burdened in the county with the highest poverty rate. And that is an injustice that we need to continue to fight for. More tools, different tools, more equitable tools to fund the services that everyday Lancastrians rely on.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Reverend Shell, what are the two most important issues facing Lancaster in the next 4 years?
First of all, I think that the most important thing is facing the Lancaster City, especially in the Southeast area, is how we have the highest unemployment in the Southeast area. We have the most unattended when it comes down to repairing the streets in the Southeast area. We have the most unemployment as well as small businesses in the Southeast area. And those are some of the most important thing that I think we need to look at, as well as housing in the Southeast area. These things are very important. Over the last 40 years, we have streets that have not been paved in the 40 years since I've been living in the Southeast area. We have many vacant buildings in the Southeast areas that could be incubators for small manufacturers that will help bring down unemployment in the Southeast area, as also that will also not increase the decreased unemployment, but also bring about a more awareness and concern and careness about our community. We have, for over 40 years, we have been completely on the back burner of the city. As we see other parts of the city are growing, just as the mayor said, that downtown businesses are growing and northwest part of the city are growing. But the Southeast area, there has not been anything done as far as unemployment, as far as repairing the streets, as far as bringing the city into bringing peoples together. And I think that these are the things that I was definitely focused on in the next 4 years as mayor.
Thank you very much, Reverend. With the influx of money coming into the city lately, and this is for the mayor, what are your plans to improve inadequate housing, transportation, and as Reverend Shell has spoken, just improve the quality of life for the Southeast area?
Thank you. I'm just writing your three things. So beginning with housing, I am very optimistic that with the American Rescue Plan funds the city has received, we will be able to advance more affordable housing in the city of Lancaster. And so this has been something that we've been working on over the last probably, well, in earnest since before COVID to address. And I think that one of the challenges that we have related to affordable housing has always been that there is not a federal subsidy to cover the gap between what it costs to build and what people's incomes will allow. I understand affordable housing and the definition of affordable housing is that you're not spending more than 30% of your income on housing related costs. And we know that there are many, many residents in the city of Lancaster who are in fact doing so. And how do we address that at a time when before COVID, we were certainly not seeing the kind of wage increases that we are now. And so I do feel that we are on shifting sands as we see wages increasing, but we're also seeing skyrocketing housing costs. And I was just out in a neighborhood yesterday, where people are talking to me about houses selling for, over $175,000. And how can this be? And so we do have this opportunity with the American Rescue Plan Act funds to really inject monies into the production of housing. And I encourage folks to check out some of the documents that we have following the last city council meeting on October 12th that lays out our interim housing strategy. And it's interim because we're also in the process of our comprehensive plan. As it relates to quality of life, there is an ongoing need to address quality of life issues, and that does include housing, and it does include housing quality. It also includes issues related to speeding and litter and noise, which are, I would say, the three most frequently complained about items in the city. Every neighborhood I go to, there are concerns about speeding and noise and also litter. And so we're piloting some new things and continuing to advance work to increase the safety of our streets through a Vision Zero initiative, which aims to eliminate fatalities and significantly reduce serious injuries through our street network. We know where the high crash intersections are, and we are actively addressing those through enforcement, education, and engineering. We also know that noise is an ongoing concern, and that is going to take all of us to address. The hardest is the moving noise, but we also know that neighbors deal with noise on an ongoing basis. And so making sure that people understand that, if you're going to use amplified sound, you need to have a permit, and what that permit entails in terms of the responsibility to not just be as loud as you want to be, but to continue to support events in the city while also balancing those needs. And then in terms of speeding, this is an ongoing challenge that we have because we're the only state in the nation that doesn't allow our police to use radar. And we have a speed limit of 25 miles an hour. And we all know, and we see it every single day, people speeding on streets throughout the city of Lancaster. And that is something that we have to continue to work on in terms of our quality of life. I am appreciative of some of the special funding that we've gotten through the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation to do speed details and to work intersections and basically hand out information to people. Hey, this is you need to yield to pedestrians in crosswalks. You need to slow down. We're going to do safety checks to make sure your babies are strapped into car seats safely. We're going to make sure that you are wearing your seatbelt. All of these things are a part of community engagement. And that is something that within the police department, there is a new Office of Community Engagement that has been established.
Can I just interrupt you for a second? One of the other important thing was about transportation, like the Southeast lacks, adequate transportation for people to get to maybe some good paying jobs. So are you all addressing any of that?
So transportation needs are a challenge because the city doesn't have We are not in charge of the South Central Transit Authority, which oversees all of the bus routes. We are regularly engaging as they look at route changes and whatnot related to that. And that is really going to require a lot more community engagement when they are next looking at their bus route map. What I can tell you is that we have partnered with the chamber and a number of businesses to have vans picking up employees to be able to take to places of work. We also understand that there are real limitations related to folks who are working third shift. You might be able to get to your job, but you're not able necessarily to get home using public transit. And so how are we going to do that? The other thing that I will say is that in the Southeast, that there are the largest number of bus stops and routes on routes, and that is something that we need to continue to elevate. We know that the bus system is underutilized, and in part because it takes a long time to get where you're going, and you might have to transfer at the Red Rose Transit station downtown. And that not everybody can coordinate the childcare that they need to be able to travel by bus to what their place of employment is. So this is definitely something that needs more work. The tools that the city has are somewhat limited, so I don't want to over promise and under deliver. But I do want to say that I am very aware of the transportation concerns.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Reverend Shell, would you like to speak about what would your plans be to improve inadequate housing, transportation, childcare, and small business?
Well, first of all, I just like to say I hope we have the same equal time.
Well, you have the time. You have the time. Just.
I was just clocking my time.
All right.
Now, would you restate the question again, please?
Okay, with the influx of money coming to the city, most recently, what would be your plans to improve inadequate housing, transportation, school, daycare, small businesses?
Look, as far as housing, I think that one of the things I must say that as I've been knocking on doors over the last couple of months, we have a lot of vacant houses down in the Southeast area. One of the things that as mayor, what I would do would make sure that my housing inspectors go to these houses and make sure that these vacant houses and see who own them and what we need to do to work with them to get them back into the market. If they're not willing to, then ask them to sell them so that we can get them into the market and get them back into people that looking for homes. That's one of the things that I would do. The other thing that I would do as far as that we have a lot of outside investors coming in, building condos into the city. And yet when it comes down to affordable houses, they're not the people that cannot afford them is not able to get into these houses. One of the things that I think that if anyone can invest $5 million to come into the housing, into the city and build a condo, I think they can at least allow a certain percentage of that to be for low income family. So that's the other thing that I would do. The second thing that I would do is make sure that when they come into the city as contractors, to make sure that they hire some people from the city to be employed. All of this money that the city, we give them many services that will help them come into the city, but yet they leave the city with nothing. They build the houses and the condos and so forth, and yet the city do not benefit from that. So I will make sure that the city benefit that also the people that live in the city. The third thing I would do when it comes down to daycare is continue to work with the state and to make sure that we have a healthcare program that will continue to benefit the low-income families in the city. And the third thing, when it comes down to businesses, as I said earlier, that we have a lot of vacant buildings in the city that can be used for small manufacturers that will help unemployment within our city. I will go out and look for businesses that will come in and want to start their business in the Southeast area. We have a company like Base, for instance, that we have a lot of that always their meetings there once a month. And those are people that looking for opportunity to start their businesses. So I will work with them to bring their business into the city so that we can also help lower the employment in the city, as well as grow the city, as well as quality of life in our city. And I know from a fact that wherever there are businesses, wherever there are good paying jobs, wherever there are people that have good housing, you have quality of life. You have more police protection. You have more just overall protection within the city, because why? They have a reason to come in there. And so this is what we are liking as part of our city here, as far as the Southeast area. And I think those are the things that I would definitely work on in the next 4 years as mayor of the city.
Thank you, Reverend Shell. So I would just like to throw out a question that's not part of this, but since we're talking about housing, and since we're going to have this new 20-story building from Willow Street, that do either of you know if there's provision to have some low-income housing in that particular development? Because what I'm asking is that, when we talk about affordable housing, they tend to want to put the people just in one space, when in fact they should be all over the city. That's my personal opinion. So either Mayor or Reverend Shell, do you know if there's any provisions for any low-income housing within that complex that they're building?
So I can answer that to start, and then Reverend Shell, please chime in. There are not provisions to add any affordable housing as part of Willow Valley's investment. And I want to be specific about why that is. That investment that is coming in is private investment. There are no city dollars that are going into that project. That project is being fully financed by Willow Valley. And that parcel of land is also currently unoccupied by any residents or anything that is residential. That is in contrast to what they're doing across the street, which is financing with Lancaster Equity, the purchase and renovation of Southern Market to serve as an incubator space for the development of small business owners in the area of restaurateur and food service in partnership with assets. I also want to be clear that Willow Valley, although it is a nonprofit, it will be paying its full freight in taxes to the city of Lancaster, as well as the school district of Lancaster. And that results in millions of dollars to the city. And so while they are not specifically adding affordable housing, and because we have not had, we don't have before ARPA, any incentives to provide dollars to cover the costs that are related to that development. That project does not. However, I want to be clear that as we are moving forward, we are looking at ways to partner with private developers to provide more opportunities to subsidize what's required to build new buildings in the city of Lancaster to provide more opportunities for affordable housing. And I will also say that under my administration, we have gotten more units of affordable housing than in the last 50 years, in partnership with Washington Equity Partners that is developing the former hospital on 250 College Avenue and HDC Mid-Atlantic.
All right,
And that right now that's about 120 units total.
thank you. Reverend Shell, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I do. And I agree with the mayor as far as Willow Valley coming into the city. This is not Willow Valley City. This is our Lancaster City. And when they can come in here, it is up to us to tell them they must provide a certain amount of housing, low-income housing to our community. This is, as mayor, this is what I would do. As well as the St. Joe Hospital, that unit is being converted. I think that we should have more input on that as far as compared to low income housing. My main concern is all of these projects is going northwest. Nothing is coming back to the south side of the city. And when we can pass up Willow Valley, and I'm quite sure yous that are hosting this know in order to get into the city, you got to cross the south side. And all of these buildings there are vacant, but yet they don't want to spend the dollars there because we won't enforce it. And I think, and so I, as mayor, this would be one of my concerns. If you're gonna come in here, let's start there and come in. And so this is where I would make sure that Willow Valley, regardless, and I know who they are, just like the mayor do. I've been in this city for over 40 years. I've worked with them, and so I'm very familiar. They need to invest money, and there's no reason why they cannot come right there on North Queen Street, and build a unit like that, and yet not allow some of those units to be for low-income families, live right across the street.
Thank you. This is my last question, and then we're going to open it up to our chat. And this has to do with our youth. And I'd like to know from each one of you, and Reverend, you can go first if you like, what will you do to invest in the youth, such as relevant rec center that includes facilities for job and life training skills?
Thank you. You know, I used to, when I had my business, there was some young people down there on Almanac Avenue, 2 young boys, and today they're in their own business. As a matter of fact, they have a car lot. They sell cars out on Man Pike. And they grew up right there. And they used to come to me and say, Reverend Shell, what could I do? And I said to them, I said, come here on Saturday morning and cut the grass, pick up the papers around the center. And they learned from that every Saturday morning. They would come and cut the grass and pick up the paper. They started their own business from that. I think that, and this is all going back community and having businesses in the community. This is what brings quality life. When we have our own businesses, have businesses in our community where we can reach out to the youth and so forth, and also support them in whatever, Major League Baseball, the Little League Baseball, the Boys Club, the Girl Scout, and just being there for them. These are the things that help grow our youth and help bring quality of life to our youth when they can see we as a community as well as doing things and just and growing them. And I think these are the things that I would do as mayor.
Thank you. Mayor Sorace, would you like to add in something to that?
I would, and I'm going to go way back to when these babies, these children are babies and growing up in their homes, and that I am working steadfastly to make sure that they are safe in their homes, that they have healthy homes to grow up in, that they have the ability to reach their fullest potential and not start behind the starting line because they are poisoned with lead. And this is a challenge for us as in our community, because we have very, very high exposure to lead for our children. There are hundreds of homes, 700 in fact, that we have targeted over the next 5 years south of King Street to really make sure that our children have every opportunity to learn and be successful as young people. So that's first where I'm starting. The second place where I'm starting is working in partnership with the School District of Lancaster to make sure that those children have access to the funding that is necessary for them to be successful. We need a fair funding formula to be 100% utilized by our state legislature. And I'm looking forward and continuing to work alongside Dr. Rao as that case proceeds. I believe opening arguments are now set for November. Those are two of the ways that I will continue to invest in young people. We will also continue to invest in the rec center, as well as the public library, as well as our parks and open spaces. We believe that that is very important. I'm very proud of what Milburn Park looks like today. I couldn't say that a year ago, but the Violet Milburn Park in the Southeast has completely been renovated the first week of October in partnership with Pennsylvania Municipal League and many, many other partners and volunteers. So these are some of the ways that I'm investing in young people right now today.
Thank you, Mayor. Now I would like to ask our third Vice President, Joanna Martinez, to now take some questions from the chat room.
Thank you so much, Patricia, Mayor Sorace, and Reverend Shell. To be fair, I'm going to go back a little bit in the chat just because people, as you both have been speaking, have been writing questions, and I want to make sure to try to catch as many of those as I can. So going back to the beginning, we have a question from Gretchen Hathaway. She said, for both candidates, please give examples on how you worked with diverse constituents to make Lancaster a safer, more inclusive and equitable community. And please give explicit examples. Mayor Sorace, if you would like to go ahead and take that one first, just a brief.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
hi, Dr. Hathaway. Thank you for your question. It was great to see you at the YWCA Luncheon for Women of Achievement on Friday. Here's a very specific way that we are engaging our neighbors, and that is, I'll talk about Howard Avenue is the very first project that we began working on in the city of Lancaster. And it started with me out canvassing that neighborhood, knocking on doors, talking to residents about the things that they needed and wanted to see more of in their neighborhood. That resulted in a lot of sidewalk repairs, street repavement, litter receptacles. We engaged in other neighborhoods in a very similar fashion. It's actually how Milburn Park got started. We were canvassing around South Line and Rockland streets, and learned that, you know, there was a lot of things that were happening in Milburn Park that were not conducive to having children and playing in that park. And so what do we need to do? We need to improve lighting. We need to improve the conditions of the park. And so we set out to do that. What not my only pain in all of this, but one of them is that it takes too long to get some of this stuff done. Another example is around language access. When we first came into office, there was not a consistent language access plan across every department in the city. That now exists, and that is something that I am really, really encouraged by. And although Spanish is in the top 3, the other languages would probably surprise folks in terms of the diversity of residents who need language access to be able to access the information that you and I all take for granted because we're primary English readers.
Thank you so much.
Reverend Shell, do you have something to add to that?
Would you repeat the question?
Yes, so the question was to please give examples on how you worked with diverse constituents to make Lancaster a safer, more inclusive and equitable community, and to please give explicit examples.
Well, let me just go back and let me say that, first of all, I used to own a restaurant, and the first bilingual, well, I should say Spanish person that I hired, she could cook good, but she couldn't speak English. I taught her how to speak English, and today she managed a bank here in the city of Lancaster. I've also worked with other Spanish bilingual people, I should say, that are not capable of speaking English, and help them. And this is part of, in my business, I used to bring them in, and there are some today will tell you that they have, because of me working with them in the community, living in the community, taking a firsthand approach with them and making sure that they got the help they're needed. Sometime I even went to the courthouse with them because they wasn't able to interpret like they should. So I worked with them and helped them get the right information that they need. And so this is part of a community base. And also, one of the things I must say, stress that when we have businesses in our community, a lot of our, because we're so diverse, a lot of the people's here that doesn't have the transportation, they doesn't know how to really relate. So, but if you have that business in that community where they know you, then they can come and relate to you, and you can make sure that they get the necessary need and help that they need so they can move forward. So that's one of my ways of working with our diverse community.
Thank you.
So we do have another question. Actually, it's two questions that I'm going to, they're about the same, sort of the same thing. So I'm going to merge them a bit for you. But both Joey Dastra and Barry Russell are asking about county and city liaison. So there's, why is there not a city liaison to county and state government to get some of the things you were talking about earlier done? And the co-question is, how will either candidate improve productive relations with the county and state to benefit city residents? And in what areas would you start? And I think that one has, they're both about the same thing, but I think that one gives you some very specific things to shoot for in your answer. So how would you improve productive relations with county and city, state to benefit city residents? And in what areas would you start? You know, example, transportation, housing, local economics, et cetera. And Mayor Sorace, if you would like to go ahead and.
Okay, I want to be mindful of that. Very good. So I think that the ways in which I've attempted to strengthen relationships with the city and county, I'm not going to lie, it has been challenging. And I would also say that the ways in which we partnered most closely with the county have been around homelessness services, because ultimately the county is responsible for coordinating homelessness services in our community. And we have poured approximately $1 million into supporting additional outreach workers and outreach specialists that has a little bit more flexibility to work with folks who are dealing with a variety of issues, not just homelessness, as well as helping to get the day shelter started in the city of Lancaster. I think that my ability to work has quite honestly been affected by the national tenor. And I want to say that in our community, it used to not matter so much if there was an R or a D after your name. We were really more concerned about getting the work done. At least that's what I've been told. I think that things have changed. And I am really working to be diligent in serving the city of serving the residents of the city of Lancaster, regardless of whether or not I agree with everything that other elected leaders at the city and the state level are about, but to continue to and remain focused on what the needs of the residents are. And sometimes that means that, I need to like practice staying in my lane and really advocating for the things that are needed. Like, for example, the fact that this last week we found out we got the low-income housing tax credits that are going to make a 60-unit affordable housing project on College Avenue come to fruition. That meant that we had to work across the aisle, and it also meant that we had to be calling the governor's office. We had to be pulling every possible lever to make that happen, because usually it takes 3 years. You usually have to ask 3 separate times to get those tax credits. And so I think just tenacity and focus are the ways in which that I have been able to continue to meet the needs of city residents, despite a really difficult political climate that has only grown worse in this past 18 months.
Thank you. Reverend Shell?
Well, let me just say that over the last, being in business, I work with county officials. I work with the local state government. And I think that I know it's not an easy task, but I believe as mayor, and because the county know how I work and they know my background, and along with the state, I think that we will be able to move such projects like those along much faster and quicker, especially when it comes down to benefiting the community, was housing, the health and welfare of the community, and providing social services to our community. I believe that we can move those processes along very quickly.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start out with Reverend Shell.
Okay, thank you, Patricia. This may be our last question, just looking at time and trying to be fair to everyone in the chat.
I thought that we would go until 7:05. So we
Okay.
got about 5-6 minutes to get as many questions as we can.
Okay,
Can I have the last 5 minutes?
We'll try to squeeze them in. So, just to be fair to everyone in the chat, if you've asked multiple questions and I've already read your name, I'm going to try to find someone we haven't hit. Here is a question from Derek Birch. And it kind of goes back to when we talked about Patricia asking about like youth, supporting youth. And Reverend Shell, let's go to you first here. It says, if you are elected mayor, will you pledge, and how will you pledge to support youth development or community-based organizations that serve the youth and families of our community?
Well, I thank you, Mr. Birch, for that question, and I thank you, Joanne. Let me just say, over the last 10, 15 years, a lot of programs we had in the Southeast area is no longer available. And one of the things that I would do as mayor is make sure that when we talk about our youth and programs for them, I would make sure that the resources is there in order to make sure that our youth, not only our youth, but youth of all over the city can benefit and have a chance to have a quality life and coming up in the city. And those are the things that have been completely, and this is what I've been saying, these are the programs that have been completely over the last 20 years depleted from the Southeast area. We have not only lost our youth, but we have lost the buildings that our youth used to come in and have school program, be able to just have a good place to meet, and so these programs have been completely delayed. And these are not programs that we can blame federal government, state government. These are programs that we have to blame our local city government for. And if I was mayor, these programs will never be depleted.
So as mayor, it's always a balance between the available resources and the needs and priorities in the community. And I'm also really clear that we have the highest tax burden in the county with the lowest taxing capacity. And so that really does put everything into sharp focus as it relates to investing in our communities. As mayor, I will continue to invest in our youth by making sure that their homes are safe, lead safe, make sure that they are healthy homes for children to grow and live in. I will continue to work with our police to make sure that young people and our families feel safe in their communities and their neighborhoods. I will continue to address all of the ways that we work in our public parks, creating safe and vibrant public spaces for children, and to make sure that they have access to the amenities that they want in their neighborhoods.
Yeah, I would like to just add, as a moderator, I'm just taking the liberty, is that children that come from low income just don't have the same opportunities. And so they need job getting skills, job keeping skills. They need to go and visit colleges. There's just certain things in which they need, and it's more than just, you know, housing and those types of things. And so those types of things are now missing from the Southeast. I've been here 30 years and I agree with Reverend Shell. They were there, they're no longer there. They need to come back, and it doesn't take a lot of money. So I hope that whoever is mayor address that, because that helps the school to prison pipeline, which in fact we want to make sure that we get rid of. So, okay, I'm sorry, Joanna, go ahead.
It's okay. Thank you, Patricia. So we actually have a question from our Facebook live stream. So we have someone there that's watching asking a question from Gary Brown. And he asks, how would the candidates ensure that more businesses pay their fair share of property taxes? I do not remember, I'm sorry, Patricia, who had answered the last question first. So maybe we can take turns doing that.
I think Reverend Shell answered, so I'll jump in. So thanks, Gary, for that question. So we have 30% of properties in the city of Lancaster that are a nonprofit, and they do not contribute to the tax base, but for a few organizations that contribute a payment in lieu of taxes. And as I mentioned, Willow Valley is going to be one of those. LGH and Penn Medicine is another. They contribute over $1 million to the city to help fund our city services. I will also share with everyone that we have a structural deficit, but for these federal dollars, we would be facing significant, even more significant financial challenges as a city administration. And so we actively work in partnership with the School District of Lancaster to make appeals, because obviously we don't get to set the assessed value of properties. That comes from the county tax assessor's office. But when appeals are made for downgrades in the cost of a property, we coordinate with the School District of Lancaster to decide if we are going to make an appeal. We are fighting on behalf of all of the taxpayers in the city of resident, both for the School District of Lancaster as well as the city of Lancaster, and the important services that our residents rely on from those two entities. Thank you.
Reverend Shell.
I have to agree that with the mayor, that when it comes down to businesses, one of the things, let me just say that when it comes down to property assessment, that is different. But when it comes down to businesses, making sure that they pay their taxes, as mayor, I will make sure that the businesses pay their fair share, regardless. If there would be no subsidized when it comes down to their taxes, there would not be no nonprofits when you coming in. Those that are already grandfathered in, yes, they're grandfathered in, but those that are coming in today's market, they have to pay their fair share. In order for our youth and our city to grow, and this is part of the fund that have been taken away from our community and also have deleted program that could have been subsidizing to our youth to help keep those buildings and our youth occupied, because why? It was subsidized, take it from them and give it to them. And that's why our community is in such dire need of repair, and our youth is in such dire need of rehabilitation and so forth. So I will make sure from here going forth as mayor that there will be no subsidized. You come in here to start a business, you pay your share.
Thank you. Joanna?
Yes, so we have another question here. This is from Joey Dastra, and he asks, with the city doing comprehensive planning, what is your vision for Lancaster 20 years from now, and how will your time as mayor help us to get there? Reverend Shell, I believe Mayor Sorace had gone first. The last question, if you would like to take this quickly.
Well, my vision is for 20 years from now, even though I may probably be with a headstone somewhere, but my vision would be that this was one of the greatest mayors that ever came to Lancaster City.
Okay.
And my vision for the city of Lancaster in 20 years is that it is a stronger, more equitable community for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanna. So in the interest of time, because this is supposed to be an hour, and I know that other people may have other things on their plate, we really want to honor their time. So now we'd like to ask both of the candidates for like 2 to 3 minutes to close with and say whatever that they would like to say that they didn't get a chance to say before. So Reverend Shell, would you like to go first?
First of all, again, I want to thank Joanna Martinez for her VIP. Am I correct?
She's the 3rd vice president.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. And I want to thank you, Sister Patricia and Amy Seacrest. I want to thank you. I want to thank the mayor and all of those that are tuning in. I want to thank the president, Brandon Watson, who's absent, and for everyone that's on Facebook or Zoom. And as I stated in my opening statement, that as a resident of this city for over 40 years, I love this city. I have 3 sons that have graduated from McCaskey High School. I graduated from McCaskey High School myself. And it is very important to me, living in the Southeast area for over 40 years, I can only emphasize the fact that when I came here, there was a lot of small businesses in our community that are no longer here. And it really pleased me, my heart, to see that how the Southeast area is just completely falling behind when the rest of the city is growing, blossoming and blooming, Northwest as well as the city. And so it's really, in order for us to grow, in order for us to be the Lancaster City that we can be so proudly to represent when we go out, we must be all included. And so I just like to say that in my closing, as I stated before, unfortunate, there are certain parts of the city has not had the opportunity to grow like the other parts of the city. And one of the things that always strikes me is that Dr. Martin Luther King said in one of his speeches, unless we all grow together, we all perish together as fools. So I say to all of you tonight, my dear independents, my Republicans, and my Democrat voters. Stand with me as I continue to fight for all parts of Lancaster City so that we can all grow together as one. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Reverend Shell. Mayor?
I just
Sure.
want to also echo the thanks to the NAACP, to Patricia and Joanna, thank you, and also to Amy behind the scenes, and of course to Blanding, who does so much for our community. I also want to thank Reverend Shell. We have not really had this much time to spend together as we have tonight and last week, and I appreciate that his care for the community and his willingness to step out and do something like run for mayor. It's not an easy thing to do. I would also just like to reiterate what an honor it has been to serve as your mayor for these last 4 years, and to talk about the ways in which I am truly humbled by this role, and whether that has meant knocking on doors, talking with residents about their hopes, their concerns, the things that they want to see better in their neighborhoods, and working alongside of them to make that happen, as well as a very dedicated team of city staff. I feel that I'm in this very unique position to see some of the best and also some of the worst in our city. What I'm also here to tell you is that the best far outweighs the worst. Our neighborhoods are full of people who care deeply about the city and who are really, I believe, involved in ways that are about improving the lives of the folks that are in our communities. I would also say that that there is so much more work to be done, and whether that has to do with improving public housing and affordable housing, whether that has to do with really making sure that the services of the city are accessible to everyone, whether that has to do with making sure that clean water continues to come out of your faucet and the sewer goes where it needs to. All of these things we are embarking upon and have articulated a vision for the city to become a stronger and more equitable community. And I know that I cannot do that by myself. And that is only accomplished in partnership with the residents. And I continue to look forward to that opportunity to work alongside everyone to achieve these really big goals. And it is not a moment too soon. There is an incredible sense of urgency about the work. And with the support from the community, I look forward to continuing that work. I also just want to remind folks that November 2nd is the election date. And please, please, please be sure to check out the judges for Supreme Court and Commonwealth Court that are very, very important as it relates to voting rights, as it relates to our judicial system and processes. There are 3 women on the ballot that very much deserve your support. And also the city council candidates who are running with me on the Democratic ticket. Thank you very much for this opportunity tonight. It was a pleasure to be with all of you.
Thank you. First of all, we'd like to thank both of the candidates. You know, that's the great part about Lancaster is the civility and love for the city. And I think lots of people have that. So both of you have shown that tonight. We appreciate that. I'd like to thank Joanna for helping tonight, and Amy for getting us on the Zoom, and of course our president, whose leadership, you know, makes sure that these kind of things happen and that citizens do have the opportunity to ask questions. Now, we have a lot of questions that we did not get a chance to answer that's in the chat. Is there any way that we can put those on our website or someplace that they can be seen by both candidates and others? Amy, is there any way to put it on our website or?
We can download a transcript of that chat and get it to both candidates.
Would that be helpful to both of you?
Yes.
Yes, I'd love to
Okay.
see the questions. Yes.
Okay, that'll be great. So on behalf of the NAACP, I'd like to thank you very much and thank all of the participants. We had about 36 citizens that joined us, and that just shows you how interested people are in this election. So thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.